Now we're on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis. Iboiluhu, the Gemara is a suffix. Hiniach ovi kochov v'hafach Yisrael mal. So who put the meat on the fire, on the coals? In this case, it was the akum. If left alone, without any interference, the meat would cook. Comes the Yisrael, and he speeds up the process by turning the meat upside down. Omer Rav Nachbar Yitzchok, kal v'chomer. We just finished establishing that if the last part of the bishul clincher was done by the akum, it still is not bishul akum. Then Gomer Biad Yisrael Kolshke. How much more so in this case, where the Yisrael's participation in the bishul was the clincher, and that's when the food became edible. It Barnami Omer Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. The Amri others say that it was Rav Acha bar Barachana named Rabbi. Bein sheiniach ovi kochav v'havach Yisrael, bein sheiniach Yisrael v'havach ovi kochavim mutar. Ve'no aser ad shetei tchilaso gmoro biad ovi kochav. As long as the Jew participates in the process of bishul in one of two ways, either he did the haficha, meaning even though the guy was the one who put the food on the fire, but he, the Jew, poked the fire, or the opposite. The Jew put the meat on the fire, and the akum is the one who finishes it all up. In both of these cases, it's mutter, it's not bishul akum. However, again, let's emphasize the fact that we're talking about hiniach. Right? Hiniach means that the meat was put on the coals. For example, hiniach Yisrael v'havach ovi kochav. But is it enough for the Jew just to turn on the fire? The mashgiach comes into the hotel after Shacharis, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, he dam vasikin, and then he turns on the fire. That's enough? He didn't put the food on the fire. So that's gigantic machlokus between the Ashkenazim and the Sfaradim. The Ashkenazim are very lenient with this. Sfaradim are very machmir. They will not eat bishul akum even if the Jew turned on the fire. He's got to put the food on the fire. Lamais, I think, here in Israel, we accepted the view of the Ashkenazim L'Kula. Because the view that the guy has to actually, that the Jew has to actually put the food on the fire,
right?
Amar Avina Hilchasa, we paskin that har rifta, this piece of bread, the shagar over kacham v'ofi Yisrael. So apparently the guy turns on the oven. The Jew bakes the bread in the oven. Inami, or just the opposite. Shagar Yisrael v'ofa biad ovi kacham. The Jew turned on the oven and the guy put the dough in the oven and baked it. Inami, or shagar ovi kacham v'ofa ovi kachavim. V'yasi Yisrael v'chata b'chitui. Well, let's say the guy turned on the fire, baked the bread, and the Yisrael comes now, and while the baking of the bread, he turns it this way, turns it that way in order to improve the bread. Shapridom, in all these cases, it's mutter. And why is that? Because in all these cases, for example, when the idol worshiper turned on the fire, but Yisrael is the one who baked the bread in the fire, or if the idol worshiper baked the bread, but it's Yisrael turned on the fire, it's not tchilaso gmaro biadakum. And we need both tchilaso and gmaro biadakum in order to be bishul akum. So you can have a Jew that comes along and he just, he just stirs the coals or stokes the coals, and that's enough to remove the inevitability of bishul akum. Dogma liach. What happens if a fish becomes edible because the guy salted the fish? Like we spoke about those smaller fish. Chizkiya said the Isur was made on bishul, not on maliach. Maliach is not bishul. Rabbi Yochanan Asar, Rabbi Yochanan says it's also because this is a kind of bishul. And Maliach, Harei Kirosech, is like a substitute, a subcategory of tzli, of bishul. Beitza tluya. The guy roasted an egg. Is bar kapar shari? Rabbi Yochanan, so what's bar kapar talking about? What do you mean shari? A beitza is olal shul malachim. And it's Eino Nechal Chai. All the conditions necessary for Bishul Akum apply to the Beitza. How could Bar Kapar possibly say that it's mutter? But Ki Aser Avdimi Omar, now we have a different transmission. Echad Dag Maliach Vechad Beitza Tluya Chizkiyo Ubar Kapar Sharu V'Rab Yochanan. So we have the same machlokes with regard to a salted fish or an egg that's being roasted. Is it also midin bishalaku? And the answer is that Chizkiya Shari So this I find very strange. I'll just share with you the Ramban and the Ritvot. In Bishul, according to this transmission, there has to be a contact with the food. The food has to be sort of like exposed and then cooked by the goat. But here in the case of a roasted egg, the egg was totally covered and enveloped by its shell. And therefore, according to Bar Kapara, it's not subject to the law of Bishul Akum. So now we could add a third condition, but only according to Bar Kapara, that it's only Bishul Akum if, like, the guy had a contact with the actual food. But if the food was enveloped with shell, that's not Bishul Akum. Rab Chia, by the name of Parva, Iklul Reish Galusa, he came to the house of Reish Galusa. There were a lot of unscrupulous people in the Reish Galusa. It's hard for us to believe. But Amrule Beitza Tluya Man. So the people in the house of the Reish Galusa asked the question to Rabbi Chia, what's the status with roasted egg by an idol? Exactly what we saw before. We're going to have to paskin like Chizkiah and Bar Kapar because majority rules. Amalahu Rav Zvid. When Rav Zvid hears this, he says, don't pay any attention to it. Lo tatzisule. Hachi Omar Abai. Hilchas HaKavasi Rabbi Yochanan. We pass like Rabbi Yochanan that an egg that is roasted by an akum is awesome. So they got very angry at him. Because the upshot of Rav Zvid, although I'm a little confused because he's saying it in the name of Abai, but the very fact that he's projecting it means that he accepts it. And therefore, according to Rav Zvid, they're going to have to aser a roasted egg. And in the Beireish Galusa, they were constantly roasting eggs. So this was a very bad conclusion or ruling. Sashku and Nagota, they gave him vinegar to drink. And Dechala, he got sick, Rav Zid got sick, v'noch nafsh, and he died. Sounds to me like they killed him. It was first-degree murder. Now, again, it wasn't so comfortable for them to get a psak about the Beitza Tluya, but you don't kill a person for that. So in the footnote here, he quotes the Paras Yosef. I'm not familiar who that is, nor am I familiar with what he says, other than the little bit that they revealed to us here, and that is, how could it be possible that the members of the Reish Galusa's household would have assassinated Rav Zvid? And then we have to reinterpret this Gemara, but he doesn't offer me, I don't have in my possession Paras Yosef. You still have 5 minutes? Hakafrisin. Okay, these are kind of caper berries they call the whole sugi about it in case of Avorchim. Hakaflutos are leeks. Hametalia, we don't know what it is. Vachamen, hot water. Vakloyos. Kloyos are parched like grains. Shalahem, meaning all the above were owned by the idol worshiper, is mutar. Because apparently everything on this list could be edible raw. Although I understand that you could drink hot water when it's not hot, and berries when they're not cooked. But I don't understand this thing about leeks. I don't know. Can you eat raw leeks? Let's see if he says anything here. Oh, he says leeks are edible raw. Okay. I thought leeks have to be raw. However, beitza tluya asura, right? You can't eat a beitza raw, and therefore it's subject to the laws of bishul akum. Shemen. What about oil? So the question about oil is whether or not you can actually cook oil. And even though the Chazal initially wanted to prohibit the oils coming from Goyim, but Rav Yehuda Nisia permitted it. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, ha metalia he pishla he shisa. Okay, so if you want to know what this metalia is, which we said is mutter, buy from the Goyim, then you have to know what shiasa is. But what is shiasa? We have a statement here that's attributed to Rabbi Yochanan that it's been 40 years since this incident came out of Egypt. He doesn't tell you what the incident was. We'll soon see what exactly happened. But 40 years passed by. And Rabbi Barbachana Didei Amar, no, it wasn't 40 years. It was more than that. It was 60 years. Ashitid, Shnid, it was 60 years since the incident came out of Egypt. Flow pligi. Okay, this is all on the side. They're not arguing Mar Bishnei, Uvar Bishnei. No, they're all calculating from their birthday. Now, what is Shiasa? What's the problem with Shiasa? Maisu Bizra the Karpasa. Okay, Karpas. In modern English, I think it's called celery, if I'm not mistaken. Ubizra the kisna, seeds of flax. Ubizra the shabalisa. Okay, that's a fenugreek. The sarolibadi adoni b'pshari, they soaked all of the above in lukewarm water. V'shav kulei adam kabel. They left it there until it began to grow. Wow. They brought barrels. They filled it with water. They soaked clay in the water. And the seeds attached to the clay. and they went into the bathhouse. All right, how long did they go into the bathhouse? A half hour? But on Denofku Beladle, they came out and the seeds were flourishing. It was a miracle that happened that the seeds would flourish within a half hour. The Achluminaya, they ate from it. The Kaire Midbinsa de Reshe Atrufu. After you come out of the bathhouse, you're very hot, the body's hot, you need to cool yourself off. And these seeds that were produced miraculously would cool them off from their heads to the toenails of their feet. Omar of Ashi, Omar Li, Rabbi Chanina, Milhin. This is all a bunch of hogwash. Nobody believes that these seeds all of a sudden started shooting out while they were in the bathhouse.
I think I just have about 1 more minute.
Okay, we'll finish it up. The Amarle V'Milin, others say, according to the report of Ravashi, that it was done through Mili. Mili means lechisha, incantations. Okay.
Okay.